Something major just unfolded. To an F-35 over Strait of Hormuz, a fifth-generation stealth fighter, the most advanced jet in the American arsenal, suddenly broadcasting an emergency signal over the most dangerous waters on Earth. Then, the transponder went dark. Within minutes, Iranian state media erupted with a shocking claim. But the truth points to something far bigger, something that could decide whether this war ends or explodes back to life within hours. What really happened up there? Welcome back to the Currency War, where serious stories meet serious analysis. If this is your first time joining us, take a moment to subscribe and turn on the bell. It helps you stay ahead of the developments that truly shape our world. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today, because this story reaches across every border. Your perspective matters here. The emergency signal over the Gulf. The date was May 11th, 2026. The location was the Gulf of Oman. The skies above this stretch of water had been tense for months, and on that morning, something happened that would echo across every news desk in the world. A United States Air Force F-35A Lightning II was flying through that contested airspace. This was not just any aircraft. The F-35A is one of the most advanced fifth-generation stealth fighters ever built. It is the pride of the American air fleet, and it was operating in the same skies where the current Hormuz conflict had first erupted. Then, without warning, the fighter began squawking 7,700. For those unfamiliar with aviation, 7,700 is the universal emergency code. A pilot types it into the cockpit transponder when something has gone wrong. It tells every radar in the region, civilian and military, that this aircraft is in distress. It clears the skies, it opens the airspace. It is a signal that says, "Let me land, no questions asked." A sudden turn, and a vanishing signal. The jet did not stay on its original course. Tracking data showed it turning hard toward airspace controlled by the United Arab Emirates. For a brief moment, it appeared on Flight Radar 24, visible to anyone with an internet connection. And then, the transponder went dark. The signal disappeared. The jet was gone from public tracking. To civilian observers, it was as if the aircraft had simply vanished from the sky. Within minutes, Iranian state media exploded with a single claim. They said they had shot it down. The post on social media was short and triumphant. The Iranian consulate general in India added more fuel to the fire, declaring that Project Freedom, the American naval operation in the region, was collapsing, and that the United States was hiding its losses. It was a powerful narrative. It traveled fast, and for many around the world, it sounded convincing. Why the Iranian claim did not match reality. But experienced military pilots looked at the same data and saw something very different. They pointed out a simple fact. A fighter pilot in combat taking actual battle damage does not reach up and broadcast his exact position to the entire region. That would be the last thing he would do. Squawking 7,700 is not a combat behavior. It is a standard emergency procedure. It suggests a mechanical issue, a system failure, or something inside the aircraft that needed urgent attention. It does not suggest a missile strike. Still, Iran needed a victory. The country was under enormous pressure. The ceasefire talks had just collapsed that very morning. The American president had called Iran's counterproposal totally unacceptable. The Iranian negotiating team had demanded war reparations and full control over the Strait of Hormuz. Neither demand was going to be accepted. So Iran turned to the information battlefield. The F-35 emergency signal became a propaganda gift, a country running out of time. While the propaganda war raged, a deeper crisis was unfolding inside Iran. An Iranian oil ministry official had told a major American newspaper that the country was roughly 40 days away from running out of oil storage capacity completely. Some wells, once shut down, might never reopen. The United Nations Nuclear Agency had also confirmed that Iran was likely sitting on around 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That amount sits only a short technical step away from weapons-grade material. The Iranian regime was demanding sanctions relief. They wanted frozen assets unlocked. They wanted full sovereignty over a waterway that international law clearly defines as international territory. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. Under international rules, a country may only claim 13 miles off its coast. Iran was, in effect, asking the world to look the other way while it broke that rule. The quiet question. Behind the headlines, the American jet eventually went silent over the Gulf. The Iranian propaganda machine declared victory. But behind the noise, one quiet question began to rise. What was that F-35 actually doing up there in the first place? And what was the real reason it needed to land in a hurry? To understand what really happened over the Gulf of Oman, one has to understand the rules that govern the sky. Every pilot in the world, military or civilian, learns 3 emergency codes early in training. The first is 7,500, used when a hijacking is taking place. The second is 7600, used when radio communication has failed. The third is 7700, and it covers every other type of emergency. When a pilot types 72700 into the cockpit transponder, he is not asking for help. He is announcing it. Every radar within hundreds of miles lights up with his position. Every air traffic controller drops other tasks. Every nearby airport prepares to receive him. The code is a global protocol, recognized from Tokyo to London to Dubai. This is exactly why the Iranian story falls apart on closer inspection. A jet under live missile fire does not voluntarily reveal its location to the entire region. A jet with a mechanical fault, however, does so every single time. The diplomacy that died. That morning, while the F-35 was making its emergency turn, another emergency was unfolding inside the negotiating rooms. The ceasefire talks between Washington and Tehran had just collapsed. The American side described Iran's counterproposal as totally unacceptable. The Iranian delegation had walked in with a list of demands that no major power could approve. They wanted financial compensation for naval assets destroyed during the conflict. They wanted full sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. They wanted frozen Iranian assets returned. And they wanted sanctions lifted before any nuclear discussion could even begin. None of these demands addressed the two issues that mattered most to the international community: the uranium stockpile and the open shipping lane. The talks did not slow down. They collapsed. The law Iran wanted to rewrite. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most carefully regulated waterways on Earth. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, every coastal nation is allowed to claim only 12 nautical miles of territorial water from its shoreline. The strait itself is roughly 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. This means a portion of the waterway is international, and ships of every nation have the legal right to pass through it without interference. Iran was now asking the world to ignore this rule. The Iranian negotiating position effectively claimed full control of the entire strait. That would give Tehran the power to decide which ships pass, which ones pay, and which ones turn back. Roughly 20% of the world's oil moves through that narrow stretch of sea every single day. Granting one nation control over it would mean handing that nation a switch capable of darkening economies on 3 continents. No serious government could accept such a proposal, and none did. The uranium clock. Nobody could ignore. In parallel, the United Nations Nuclear Agency released findings that shifted the entire tone of the conflict. The agency confirmed that Iran was holding approximately 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That figure is not a theoretical estimate. It is a measured quantity. Uranium enriched to that level sits only a short technical step away from weapons grade. Experts have long warned that once a nation crosses that threshold, the timeline to a working warhead can be measured in weeks rather than years. This is the silent reason every American carrier remained in the region. This is why the ceasefire offers from Tehran were treated with such caution. The strait could be discussed, the reparations could be debated. But the uranium changed everything: the 40-day storage clock. While the world watched the diplomatic theater, another clock was ticking quietly inside Iran. An Iranian oil ministry official, speaking to a major American newspaper, revealed that the country was approximately 40 days away from running out of oil storage capacity altogether. The American blockade, in place since April 13th, had stopped Iranian oil from reaching its buyers. The barrels were still being pumped from the ground, but they had nowhere to go. Tankers sat full and motionless, storage tanks filled to the top. Once those tanks reached capacity, wells would have to be shut down, and some wells, once closed, would never reopen. It was a slow, invisible collapse, and it was running on a clock no one could stop. The wall of steel. Around the Gulf, to understand why Iran is running out of options, one must first see the size of the force now positioned around its shores. The American military has built a wall of steel across the entrance to the Persian Gulf, and that wall is growing heavier with every passing week. The commander of United States Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, confirmed on May 4th that American forces had concentrated what he described as an enormous amount of capability and firepower in and around the strait. 2 full carrier strike groups were operating in the Gulf of Oman. The first was built around the USS Abraham Lincoln. The second was built around the USS H.W. Bush. Together, they brought roughly 200 aircraft and 20 warships into the theater. This is not a routine deployment. This is the kind of force a superpower builds when it is preparing for every possible outcome. The blockade that is slowly strangling Tehran. The naval blockade on Iranian ports has been in effect since April 13th. Day after day, week after week, the squeeze has tightened. According to figures released by Central Command, more than 70 tankers carrying over 166 million barrels of Iranian oil have been blocked from moving. That number is not just a statistic. It is a death sentence for the Iranian economy. For decades, the Iranian political class has stayed in power by paying off layers of loyalists beneath them. Money has flowed from oil sales to provincial governors, to security commanders, to mid-level officials, and to the militias that enforce the regime's authority. When that money stops flowing, loyalty begins to crack. A commander used to receiving a regular payment, suddenly seeing nothing in his account, begins to ask difficult questions. This is the slow poison the blockade has injected into the Iranian system, and it cannot be reversed without lifting the blockade itself. The fracture. Inside Iran's own army, a second, deeper fracture is now appearing inside the Iranian armed forces themselves. Reports emerging from the front lines describe Artesh, the regular Iranian army, being sent into the most dangerous positions with almost no supplies. Some soldiers, according to these accounts, were given as few as 10 bullets and pushed forward as human shields by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is a significant detail. Artesh is not a new force. It traces its roots back to the army of the former Shah. It has always been a separate institution from the IRGC, which was created after the 1979 revolution as the personal force of the clerical regime. If Artesh begins to feel used, abandoned, and sacrificed, the consequences could be enormous. A regular army that turns against the IRGC would change the entire internal balance of Iran. It is exactly the kind of fracture that ends regimes from within. The hidden weapon. Iran still holds. Even with all this pressure, Iran is not defenseless. The country's long-range air defense systems, including the Russian S-300 batteries and the domestic Bavar 373, have been largely destroyed by American and Israeli suppression operations. But Iran's answer to losing the high-end fight was to go low, mobile, and silent. The system at the center of this strategy is called the Majid. It is a short-range point defense weapon with an engagement range of roughly 5 to 7 nautical miles. It can reach altitudes of nearly 18,000 feet. It is mounted on mobile vehicles that can move at short notice and fire from almost any hillside or coastal position. The most dangerous feature of the Majid is what it does not have. It does not use radar. It uses a passive infrared homing system that tracks the heat signature of an aircraft engine. Because it emits no radar signal, no warning device inside a cockpit will detect it. Stealth technology, which is designed to defeat radar, offers very little protection against a weapon that does not use radar in the first place. Analysts believe this is exactly the kind of system that hit an American F-35A in March, when Central Command confirmed the strike without naming the weapon involved. The lesson is uncomfortable, but real. Iran's high-end air defense is broken. Its low-end air defense is still very much alive. The question every viewer must now ask. Before the story moves into its final analysis, a moment of reflection is needed. The events over the Gulf of Oman on May 11, 2026, are not simply a military headline. They are a window into a much larger struggle, one that touches the price of fuel at every petrol station, the cost of food on every dinner table, and the stability of every economy that depends on the open sea. So the question now turns to the viewer. What do you believe happened to that F-35 in the sky that morning? Was it a genuine mechanical emergency, as the evidence strongly suggests? Or do you believe Iran's claim that one of the most advanced fighters in the world was struck down by a hidden weapon on a coastal hillside? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because every perspective adds depth to this developing story. The strike package that may soon be unleashed. If ceasefire diplomacy remains dead, the next phase of this conflict will not look like the last one. The American military has been gathering targeting data for weeks. Every fast attack boat hidden in a coastal warehouse, every command bunker buried under rock, every coastal missile battery tucked into the cliffs near the strait has been mapped, photographed, and cataloged. The next round of operations, if it comes, is likely to focus on 3 priorities. The first is to strike the fast boats while they are still in their ports before they can swarm into open water. The second is to destroy the command nodes that control Iran's asymmetric forces. The third is to silence the coastal missile sites that threaten every ship attempting to cross the strait. The weapons available for this task are formidable. Heavy bombers, such as the B-52 and the B-1, can carry massive payloads over long distances. The F-15E strike fighter can deliver the GBU-72, a deep penetration weapon designed to reach underground command bunkers. Apache attack helicopters can hunt small boats with precision missiles. Super Hornets can clear the skies and strike high-value targets in a single pass. If the order comes, the kill chain will move faster than at any previous point in this war. The coalition that keeps growing. While Iran's position narrows, the international coalition continues to expand. France has sent its only aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, through the Suez Canal toward the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The French Ministry of Defense has stated that the carrier group is positioning for a future freedom of navigation operation in the Strait of Hormuz. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is a hard military commitment from one of Europe's most capable navies. At the same time, the United States Army has begun fielding a new vehicle-mounted laser system designed to shoot down enemy drones. The economic logic is simple. A drone costing $30,000 cannot be intercepted forever, with a missile costing $1 million. A laser that fires at the speed of electricity at a cost of less than $1 per shot changes the entire battlefield equation. In the Pacific, meanwhile, the Chinese Navy is using the world's distraction to spy on joint American and Philippine exercises in the West Philippine Sea. The world is watching the Gulf, but other powers are quietly preparing for their own future moves. What may come next? The next 40 days will be decisive. That is the window before Iran's oil storage runs out completely. If diplomacy does not return to the table within that window, the regime in Tehran will face a choice no government wants to make. It will have to either accept terms it has already rejected or escalate the conflict in a way that risks ending its own rule. For viewers, the best advice is simple. Stay informed. Follow credible sources. Watch the oil markets, the shipping data, and the official statements from Central Command. The next major development could arrive within hours, not days. A final thought. A single emergency signal in the sky may have revealed more about this war than any official statement. It revealed how fragile the situation truly is, how thin the line between peace and renewed conflict has become, and how much the world now depends on calm decisions made in very tense rooms. This has been the currency war. Stay sharp, stay informed. The next chapter is already being written.